digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, the stories that put Africa first.
TGIF, good morning, Africa. Thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. We hope you've had a very good week and the week is gradually winding down and we're excited about the weekend. I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm going to say Asante Sana, and I'm saying good morning, Africa. Welcome to Breakfast Central. Olive is a bit surprised, like,
No. You only said one. We had an agreement. We are going to say good morning in every African language all week.
Relax.
You didn't say in any language yesterday.
Relax.
So you have two languages. Asante Sana is one.
Relax.
It's enough.
I got you covered. You know.
So that's the second one.
I got you covered. I'm going to give you the second one.
You're going to Google it.
No, I don't have to.
My
So we
God.
have a plethora of languages in Africa. We're blessed, by the way. So
Yes, we
I
are.
can pick from one place to the other. So relax. I got you. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. It's the brightest breakfast show on national television, and we are indeed global. That's right, because we are Africa first. We've got Dakpo Adigboye, who is joining us as well. All smiles and ready to go, Dakpo. What's the secret of your smile? Salary, coloration,
brother.
being an African.
There's this saying that may we not look like what we're going through. So yesterday,
Are you saying that you're going through a lot?
I am going through a lot.
I'm coming from a
So yesterday, I had car issues that just sort of turned my entire plan into, I don't know. When stuff you don't plan for suddenly happens, your timetable changes, and I have still not resolved it. I'm even not sure after paying. So
No.
but that's not on my. I want to get to you, Joe. I mean, you can always say good morning in your native tongue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's try it out. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Ibibio.
I can even say it in his native tongue
I'm
because he
from
said
Akwa
it. He has said it a number of times on
I've
the
said it a
show.
number of times.
So I can
I'm
even
from
say it in
Akwa
his
Ibom,
native tongue.
I speak Ibibio, so from the south, okay?
Yes,
South
Siri.
Nigeria.
Yes, Siri.
Idemfo.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Bonjour. Let me just stick
Okay,
to
that's
that.
fine. Okay.
All right.
Lots of stories happening in Africa, guys. One of the big story that I saw this morning/yesterday that got me saying, wow, is the gag of the press in Algeria. The judiciary has been given powers now, so they could actually gag the press. E.g., if you're a journalist in Algeria, tough times are here for you, because if you put up a story, you talk about someone, you can be called to appear before the courts and the like. So it's going to be a tough time for Algerian press.
It's really, really disturbing, when you see developments like this. And you would expect that, in the 21st century, yes, even though we have fake news, there are also mediums to verify these things. But going to the extent of gagging the press, then where's democracy? Where's freedom of expression? Then, how do you even ensure, accountability, checks and balances, which eventually will result in development? So I think it's just totally, the wrong move. And
Can I give you another angle to that? Whilst I'm not in support of gagging the press, but you've raised concerns about democracy, and I totally agree with you. However, there are people who have argued that democracy is a Western concept that does not work for Africa, and Africa must look within itself and find out what works.
Now, the thing is this, Olive, even though democracy may not be the best form of government for a lot of African countries, but we are beginning to see some countries adopt or adapt their kind of democracy. So maybe for you in your country, a multi parliamentary system doesn't work. You might choose to have a single house that does the checks and balances.
So,
maybe it's a two-party system. But the bottom line is there is freedom of expression and choice.
It's fine.
I think that's just fundamental.
It's fine. Let's get into the story.
Okay.
Maybe a lot of people are in support of Kai Said and what he's doing in Ethiopia. But here are the top stories for this morning on Breakfast Central. And our top story we've got for you, East Africa Roundup. And guess what? Not just East Africa, drums roll.
All right. I'm also bringing you Southern Africa Roundup for the first time on Breakfast Central. Debut with a new anchor as well. We can't wait for that.
Wike versus Dina Malaya, Nigerian politicians in fierce verbal battle.
That sounds like something in the range. And we're bringing you the life of a Nigerian chef, breaking culinary records. She's looking to break the Guinness World Records. Exciting time for African women.
Sadio Mane suspended after all. Yes, he's been suspended after the altercation with teammates, and he may lose some money.
Oh wow!
Stay with us here on Breakfast Central.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa first.
We sincerely apologize for the technical glitch there. Back to the news. Let's begin in the east of the continent, where Kenya's opposition leader, Raila Odinga, says the opposition alliance is prepared to negotiate with the government over electoral reforms, the high cost of living, while also resuming protest. Speaking in a town hall-style meeting in Nairobi on Thursday, Odinga disclosed that protest will take place concurrently with talks with the government. He stressed that the announcement for the protest restart will be made as soon as the holy Muslim month of fasting was over. Residents of Ethiopia's protest-hit Amara region say calm has returned to the region after several days of public demonstrations against government plans to dismantle regional military forces. Earlier this week, authorities imposed restrictions, including a curfew and curbs on movement in 5 cities in Amara, following the protest over moves to negotiate to integrate regional military forces into the federal army or regional police. But residents in Bashar Dar, the administrative center of the region, said the transportation had restarted in the city just as banks and stores were beginning to open. Another local who lives in Gondar, the largest city in Amara region, reported that things were calm as Ethiopians got ready for the Orthodox Easter vacation. Ethiopia's watchdog has called for investigations into the killing of civilians and humanitarian workers during recent protests in Amara region. The killings were reportedly carried out by security forces and unknown people. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission said that worsening insecurity could lead to abuse of rights and urged security forces against using excessive force. Protests in Amara last week began in Amara last week in opposition to move by federal authorities to the paramilitary unit. The Sudanese army has issued a warning about the possibility of a conflict after a paramilitary group led by General Mohammed Amadan Dagalo started assembling its forces in the nation's capital, Khartoum, and other cities. The army revealed in a statement that personnel of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, were also entering the northern city of Marawi in a clear violation of the law and running the risk of escalating tensions as Sudan is currently at a risky crossroads. The RSF, a former militia with its own chain of command and operating under a unique law, has been charged with several human rights violations, particularly during the conflict in Sudan's Darfur area. And of course, that's all on the news. It's time back to you, Joe and Olive.
Much, Dapo. Well appreciated. Well, let's see you again at the top of the hour for 8 a.m. West African time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Olive, where are we going to next?
All right, it's of course time for us to look through the papers and share with you what's happening around the continent. We do this every morning because we want you to be abreast with information happening around the continent. I would like you to engage with us if any of the stories catch your eye. Send a tweet to News Central TV, or make a video post on your stories. We'd like to have those videos reposted as well. We'll go to Zimbabwe right after this break, and stick around. Of course, we're going around the continent. All right, we begin our conversations this morning in the southern part of the continent. Let's start to share with you what's on the daily news in Zimbabwe. And on the front page of the Daily News newspaper, we can see that the big story this morning says, CCC big wheels face tough tests as party finalizes its candidate selection process. The Citizens Coalition for Change, CCC, has said it has addressed all the issues which marred the party's recent candidate selection process for this year's harmonized elections. We don't know what this would mean. We don't know if this will strengthen the power of the CCC in terms of their influence at the next polls. But I'm sure that this is something that we will be able to monitor here and bring guests to talk about on Breakfast Central. Government to overhaul education system. This is something that's required. Said authorities will soon introduce more changes to the country's education system as part of a broader national strategy to empower learners. At the top of the paper, we have Rumba Fiesta. Kofi Olomide descends on Kadoma's Odyssey. And this is a final story today. On page 20, STEM test. Caps lock horns with FCP. I like the play on words. Caps lock horns, as in caps lock. Caps lock horns with FCP. Yeah, and when you type in caps lock, it's almost like, why are you shouting? There's one in our group that types in caps lock too. Do you know who?
I don't know who.
All right, let's move away from, I'll tell you when we go on the break. Let's move away from the south to the east.
All right, so away from daily news, let's go straight to another one. The Standard. The Standard has a lot in stock for everyone who's looking forward to hear what's going on in Kenya. Let's start off with the big picture there and the header. It says, it's back to the streets. Isn't it funny how Raila Odinga is indeed pushing really hard to ensure he gets his answers? Like someone said on, I saw it on Twitter, said just one man so powerful that he commands authority and is able to cripple an economy. He needs to be he needs to be held accountable. I do recall someone put up that tweet. But let's take a look. He says it's back to the streets. What does it mean? Opposition Chief Raila Odinga warns that anti-government demos could resume as early as next week as Azimio leaders seek to pile pressure on government through protests to run concurrently with bipartisan parliamentary talks. So while he's having the talks, the demonstrations will continue. Okay. If you take a look, there are 5 lists at the bottom there, and that's the list that the Azimio leader is actually calling for. So take your time, read them up, and you see what he's saying. Actually, coming health cover for hustlers at 17 shillings. Okay, that's a good one. Alarm as dollar surges again. So it's not just in Nigeria, also in Kenya. The Standard also says painful exit for Woods, talking about sports. Tiger Woods. You want to read about it? Well, I'm sure later on the sports guys will also give us an insight into that story. But that's all that we can take on the Standard.
You see that story you took about the alarm as dollar surges again. That's the reason why a lot of countries on the continent are looking to phase out the US dollar and say that they will not trade. And I did see, I know we talked about this a few weeks as well, where Raila Odinga had stated that they were going to ease away from using the dollar, basically telling people, those of you who are hoarding dollars, you better go get rid of these dollars because we're not going to be using them. So basically trying to take away the strength that the dollar has. But I don't know how successful that will be, because the dollar is still a very strong currency. I don't know how successful that will be on the continent.
Very strong.
Anyway, let's move away from Kenya to Cameroon and see what's on the front page of the Guardian Post. It says, CDC tenders for supply of equipment, tires, generic medications as Northwest, Southwest. Okay, no, that's one story. Another story says, as Northwest, Southwest reconstruction gains steam, steering committee adopts new operational strategy. Pleased with partners to redeem pledges to fast-track execution of earmarked projects. We also have here Balungeli Confiance Ebune, that's Northwest, Southwest Reconciliation Plan Steering Committee Chair, and that is photographed there. We have crushing to death of civilians in Bamenda, security forces not above the law. Oh wow, that's a story that one needs to look out for. It says on Wednesday, Bamenda, the Northwest regional capital, came to a standstill as the population joined bike riders to protest the crushing to death of one of their colleagues and his passenger in the city. Eyewitness concordantly told reporters that they were hit by an overspeeding police truck that did not as much as stop to assess the damage it has caused. So the police officers were speeding, a speeding police truck killed a bike rider and the passenger. And indeed, security forces are not above the law. And we see that happening, in other parts of the continent. If I want to bring it back here to where we're broadcasting from, in Nigeria, we see people who have access to sirens and have access to this. I find it very distasteful. People just have you have 4, what do they call them? Those escort vehicles, and their policemen brandishing weapons. And it's almost like, if you don't get out, we're going to bash your car. And they actually can't bash your car if you stay in their way. Some of them are not even politicians. So it's just very interesting. I really hope that the security forces who were involved with this are brought to book. Final story here, personality of the week. We have Brigadier General Hussaini Jibo, and he's the 5th Gendarmerie Region Commander, and he's the personality of the week. I really like that Guardian Post does that. Every Friday, they celebrate the personality of the week. As well. Because people are deserving of being celebrated. And we also think that you watching, you are deserving of being celebrated. And we do that every day when we show up and you show up with us. So we thank you for making your time here with us. We have a number of stories to go through this morning. Our top story, of course, like we said, we have the East Africa Roundup and the South Africa Roundup. And we'll be heading straight to that right after this break. You wake up to a lot of stories about Africa.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in In-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the New Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on New Central's social media platforms. New Central, Africa First.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at New Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
On Digi 360, we give you a complete dose of everything.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action. Digi 360, dissecting the issues.
As reporters and news stories, we experience them daily. So join us on Report Desk Africa as we share these experiences and review the top African stories. Only on News Central.
The youth has 60% of its entire population, and it's time for their voices to be heard loud and clear. Involving the young people in nation building is not merely a question of inclusion, but one that is vital for economic growth, innovation, peace, and security. Fafanua Africa provides the platform for the teeming young and vibrant population of our dear continent to voice their concerns with one goal in mind. Provide profound and tangible solutions that will help redefine and reposition the future of Africa. Join us every Friday at 2 p.m. West African Time, 4 p.m. East African Time, and 3 p.m. Central African Time on New Central TV. Fafanua Africa, redefining Africa.
Africa is rising. Again, we hear our sounds echo on the other side. Afrobeats and Afropop reinvented, hip life brought back to life, new energy infused into Kwaito and Kwela. Africa is balling. Every stroke, every shot, every race, we find our place at the top. Taking the helm of real power, new hopes for democracies. A breed of entrepreneurial tigers, audacious storytellers, and a promising generation raring to go. Truly, Africa is rising. And this is where the stories that define our continent live.
Our youth are the most important national asset that we have.
Did you hear the stories of Africans who fought for their independence, bringing a wave of 30 free countries in just 10 years? Did you hear of the heroes who fought battles just like yours? They courageously marched against bad governance, police brutality, and oppression. You're not the first in these battlefields.
Amazon is in green. Camacho Quinn second from the left. The Olympic champion's been left a little bit at the start by Armstrong.
Those stories may be hard to find foreign priority, perspective and agenda, but our stories will definitely find future generations. The fearless generation of tomorrow will know the battles that we are fighting and the giant strides we're making in technology, art, music, movies, business and more. They will know our wins and losses, our stories, and the influences of our evolving and diverse cultures. They'll learn from our mistakes, appreciate our progress, and build on successes. With our stories and their relentless ambition, we will be one step closer to the Africa of our dreams. Because whatever happens today across Africa, News Central will amplify those stories that define our times. News Central Television. We are Africa first.
We're excited to have you stay with us this morning on Breakfast Central. It's TGIF edition, which means, thank God it's Friday, the weekend is here. Let's take you to our big roundup, which is the East Africa roundup, and we are talking with our man Darren, who joins us. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for being here this morning.
Good morning. You love weekends, huh?
We all love weekends from this part of the world, and I'm sure you love weekends as well.
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Oh, wow, interesting.
Did he say?
Yeah, he said he doesn't.
Or
he said he doesn't.
I don't love weekends.
Why?
You become broke. You make money when you're working, and weekends there's no work.
Wow.
Anyway, let's get into it. Let's have the roundup very quickly. Let's talk about Raila Odinga. He's making the headlines every day, every single day, and he's saying that he's going back into the protest while still having conversations, of course, with William Ruto. Can you elaborate on the recent statement by Raila Odinga, the leader of the Azimio Mojo 1, regarding the possibility of demonstrations and the likes?
Now, yesterday, Azimio Lamoja, party and Raila Odinga had a town hall meeting for the first time since they had stopped the protests. And in there, he addressed some very important things, including the team. They announced actually their team that is going to be representing them in the talks between the party and the government. And the government, of course, also has their team that they had already fielded, but they just hadn't yet selected their vice chairperson who's going to be leading the other team to see that these talks happen. However, Raila points out issues that things like delay to even select their leader, a person who's going to be leading their team to hold this discussion, is one of the things that they are very unserious about having these talks. And according to him, that these, the delays and making it unserious is one of the tactics to, kind of stop the agenda of the Azimio la Umoja. And another thing he also points out, he says that the government party is just trying to ensure that they are the ones who are dictating what they are going to discuss about. Yet the Azimio la Umoja were very, very loud about 4 things, and one of them includes electing members of the Electoral Commission Board, 2, the high cost of living, 3, opening the servers to the public so that people know what exactly had transpired in the election period of time. But you see that the other party doesn't want to discuss any of those things. It's alleged, according to Raila Odinga, they only want to discuss how do they select members of the electoral board. So it's something he says, no. They want to be the ones to determine on what grounds they're going to discuss in case the talks happen. But in case they sense that these talks are unserious, they're going to go back to the streets and protest. And this he promised that after the holy month of Ramadan, in case these talks, according to him, are unserious and they do not address any of those grounds, they're going back on the streets. That pushes the government in a position whereby it now looks like Raila has them in his hands. He's put them in a corner where he exactly wants them to be. And it's now going to take more than just these talks to ensure that the protests don't happen. I sense more conversations from the region. It may end up involving leaders like Museveni and the other East African leaders to see that they come and bring down these 2 members and agree on something that is going to bring calm to the country, which is not so likely, or not so likely because, again, Raila, first of all, if the first time he had these talks, the moment he accepted to have these talks, that was already a sign that he can actually go ahead and have conversations with the president. And there are so many predictions around it that maybe he has his own personal interest, and once Ruto grants him his personal interest, then that will be the end of it. But where does it leave the people who he is representing? Example, the people who are fighting for the cost of living.
Man, so many angles to look at this conversation.
So many.
And at the end of the day, it's the people of Kenya that have to suffer for this. They say when the 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And I hope that these 2 leaders can put their differences aside and reach an amicable agreement, because lives have been lost with these protests. But let's move away from Kenya for a bit and head to another conversation. Tanzania and Burundi have put out a request for proposals for the design and construction of an electrified railway that will initially connect the 2 nations and pass through the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, how will this boost trade in the East African region, and what have been the challenges in building the SGR from Mombasa to Kampala?
Now, right from the 1970s, there was already a discussion between the East African states, first of all, to form one state. I'm just giving you a background. And one of the 4 pillars that was in there was intertrade, to ensure that there's free movement of goods within East Africa. And at that time, it was only Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya who formed the members of the East African bloc. And slowly, after it collapsed actually in the 1980s, and then it was again brought back in the 2000s, early 2000s, late 90s into 2000s, and the conversation to revive the East African bloc came through bringing on countries like Rwanda and Burundi, who joined later. The same 4 pillars stayed. And the only way they realized that we can only achieve this bloc can have its purpose if one thing we get right is the trade. And fast forward, there were agreements that were made to build rail lines. There was one that was, in fact, the other year, about 4 years ago, Kenya completed its standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Nairobi, coming close to Naivasha, and Tanzania was supposed to do the same, building a rail network that connects the other countries like Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda. that some of them have delayed, but this is a step forward and it gives hope that now the project is starting to happen. What that means is that the 282 kilometer rail network that is going to also have an electrified gauge on it will be connecting a new country into the bloc, which is DRC, and DRC has been looked at as a very big potential market, but not only East Africa, but also the continental free trade area. That is going to be one of the most busiest routes in case this standard gauge rail is constructed. And we see countries, making countries like Burundi, which are very low at export because of their issues, road networks, and also political issues. We see them being able to export at least $100 million a year. That is just a projection, but they may be around 60 at worst case scenario if things go bad. For now, they're really doing bad. In fact, it's the country with the least GDP, I think, after South Sudan. So it's going to boost trade within that area, but also the biggest picture here is the African Continental Free Trade, which is going to be the biggest in the world in case all agreements have been signed and agreed that goods can move within African continent freely and so easily. So that the biggest goal is the African Continental Free Trade, but now the secondary objective is also boosting the East African trade if it happens with the rail lines.
That's a good one. I think that's one thing that Africa has indeed not benefited from. We're blessed and rich in resources, and one of the challenges has been cross-border, being able to ensure that we all have a feel, we all have a cross-trade, so to say, and benefit from different parts of Africa, from different parts of the continent. But my worry, very quickly, Darren, we have another guest we'd like to also introduce to you, by the way. Very quickly. Yeah, we're coming. Very quickly. Is there no fear or worry concerning the current crisis that is bedeviling DR Congo and how this intertrade between Burundi and Tanzania will take place? Are there no fears concerning the current crisis?
Of course, there are fears. One of them, the most important one, has always been funding. It has happened to Kenya. It has happened to Uganda. Kenya is still paying the debts to Chinese for the standard gauge rail line. Uganda had to cancel a deal with one of the Chinese constructors and now went for the Turkish one. And this is the same thing that is going to happen to the one in Tanzania to Burundi via Congo. So the problem will be funding and the timing. But also too, because Congo has so many, rebel groups that are hindering kind of the construction and development of, of the country itself, they may face challenges on the routes. Where do we pass where it is safer to make sure that we get into Congo and to Kinshasa, to Central African Republic, and, going westwards in terms of... So the biggest issue here is security. But with the East African force, standby force put in place, you just never know. It may go well, it may not go well. I mean, just look at the example of a rail line from Mombasa to Uganda, which has failed even when there's no insecurity issues just in the neighborhood, between the two countries. So it's one of those things that you may fear the rebel group activities, but the issue has always been funding and also implementing work in terms of good work or shoddy work.
Well said. I mean, we hope that these socio-economic policies and this trade as well. Yeah, go on.
Let me give you an example. In Uganda, they had repaired the rail lines, and then they procured the wrong specifications of the train to work on those rail lines. It was the funniest thing ever, but yeah, that's one of the things that you expect.
And who takes the fall for that? Does anybody actually take the fall for that?
Can you beat that?
Well,
there were no consequences.
Exactly. It's why we can be having conversations like that. We need to have systems and structures that ensure that there are consequences for actions. Else, we'll be having conversations about rail line and rails not fitting, or iron sheets that people have used for their own personal communities, or iron sheets that were not assigned to them. But that's a conversation for another day. Darren, would like to introduce you to someone, and I'll have Joe do the honors. Whilst we've done the East African roundup, we'd like to have the roundup from South Africa. And for the very first time, we have a new guest, and I'll have Joe do the honors.
All right. Anyway, it's my pleasure to tell you, Darren, that you're not alone in this race with us on Breakfast Central every Fridays. We've come to make it even more colorful as we have joined to the fold. I'd like to welcome him, ladies and gentlemen, and of course to our man who's here with us, Darren. Would like to make welcome Tebogo Makoto. He will be taking us on the Southern Africa Roundup, but he's not starting today. Today is just for introductions because time is fast spent. Tebogo, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Breakfast Central. Truly African color, and it's good to see you here.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to have joined Breakfast Central. I'm excited in terms of working with you guys as well and really unpacking what's happening in Southern Africa.
Great.
Absolutely amazing.
Darren, how do you feel? You have your colleague now, a counterpart who's handling the southern part while you take on the eastern part.
I thought Joe was going to say, Darren meet Tebogo, Tebogo meet Darren.
Okay, all right. Oh, that sounds really good. Darren meet Tebogo, Tebogo meet Darren.
Tebogo, nice meeting you. And here's the interesting thing that I've seen about Tebogo. He's a radio presenter. I do radio as well. I do TV and radio, so I see he does radio as well. So quite a lot in common. Nice meeting you. We're gonna catch up.
Let me also give you an interesting fact. I started off as a radio presenter.
I worked on radio as well. That makes the four of us.
That's it.
You see, the network is so bad right now. I'm unable to.
Oh, Tebogo,
I'm unable to hear you clearly currently. Unfortunately, we are having technical difficulties.
But I'm sure we'll sort that out before next week Friday, so we can have this fresh conversation together. I'm sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Great conversation there. Breakfast Central even gets it more colorful, and that's what we do with Africa First, Olive.
Absolutely. I like the fact that we not only prioritize telling stories by covering the front pages of the newspapers, we actually go into these countries to get the resources, to get the people who are there, who can give us expert analysis and reporting of the story. So I'm really excited to have Tebogo on the team. And, as always, I'm grateful to have had Darren on the team. He's such a fantastic addition to the team.
Always spot on.
Yes.
Always spot on, Darren.
Speaking about being spot on, it's time for us to go to sports.
Relax. I know you're trying to crack a joke. Relax.
But I've already cracked it.
Anyway, sports is up next. As we thank Tebogo for joining us, Darren as well, I want to say thank you to our man Abdul Latif, who has worked tirelessly to ensure that we connect the African dots right here in this studio. So well done. Abdul Latif happens to be our in-house researcher who's been doing amazingly well.
The way you looked at me like you're trying to tell me that.
Shut up.
Thank you very much.
I'm just telling you, just in case.
And he does a great work of celebrating everyone. He writes like the nicest poems.
He's a poet, by the way.
Yeah, the nicest poems for us on our birthdays, and just to very warm welcome. So thank you, Abdul Latif, for the work you've done and for helping us, like Joe said, connect the dots.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we're going to break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to you about what's happening in the world of sports. Demise has befallen Sadio Mane. Do I call it demise? No, some unfortunate incidents, right? But it's consequences and action.
It's good.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Africa needs its own storytellers segment. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single, just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's new age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, the stories that put Africa first.
Hello and welcome to Sports Update on Breakfast Central. I am Udoka Njoku. German Bundesliga giants Bayern Munich have left Senegal international Sadio Mane out of their squad for Saturday's league match against Hoffenheim amid reports he punched teammate Leroy Sané. Reports in Germany alleged Mane hit Sané in the face following Tuesday's 3-0 Champions League defeat by Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium. The pair reportedly had to be separated by teammates after the altercation. And Bayern said Senegal forward Mane has been dropped because of misconduct and confirmed he will also be fined. The two-time African Footballer of the Year had complained about the way Germany winger Sané spoke to him after the defeat. After flying back to Germany, Mane was picked up privately at the airport while Sané got the team bus. Both Mane and Sané were back in training together on Thursday, and neither of them has commented on the alleged altercation. That's quite sad for Sadio Mane. From there, let's go straight to England and talk about the English Premier League. They have announced that gambling sponsorship on the front of jerseys will be withdrawn by the end of the 2025-2026 season after a collective agreement by the clubs. 8 of the 20 top flight clubs currently have shirts sponsored by gambling companies. The 3-year transition period will allow for existing deals to be completed without clubs facing penalties for cutting contracts short. Gambling sponsors on the front of football shirts have already been outlawed in Italy and Spain. The UK government review of gambling legislation will reportedly fall short of a blanket ban in front of shirt sponsorship due to the financial hardship it would cause clubs further down the pyramid. All right, let's go on a quick break. We'll return to bring you more of the sports updates. Glad to have you stay with us. It is still the sports update on Breakfast Central. Now moving on to other stories now. Argentina and Paris Saint-Germain forward Lionel Messi, alongside some other sports personalities, have been named in Time's list of the 100 most influential people of the year 2023. Messi's PSG teammate Kylian Mbappe, 2022 French Open and the US Open champion Iga Swiatek, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Phoenix Mercury center Brittany Griner, and the record-setting alpine skier Mikaela Shiffrin were recognized as well. Messi, Mbappe, Mahomes, Swiatek, and Shiffrin all excelled in their respective sports over the last year. Now, Messi Tina win its third World Cup, taking down Mbappe and France in the final. Mahomes lifted the Vince Lombardi Trophy for a second time while collecting his second Most Valuable Player award. And for Swiatek, the tennis superstar, she is ranked #1 in the women's category in the world, and the 21-year-old figures to be a fixture near the top of the rankings for the foreseeable future. Now, Shiffrin broke Lindsey Vogn's all-time World Cup wins record for a female alpine skier in January and took down Ingemar Stenmark's overall mark in March. And to tennis, we head as world #1 Novak Djokovic suffered a shock loss for Musetti, defeating the former world #1. Right there, talking about Novak Djokovic, and a big upset it is in the Monte Carlo Masters. And that's a wrap on Sport Update and Breakfast Central. I am Udoka Njoku. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Oli.
Good morning, Udoka. Good morning, Mr. Njoku. I can call you. Since you called both of us, I think I can split it and call you that way.
Okay.
But what do you think about Sadio Mane? I mean, losing some money and all that.
You know, it's really sad for Sadio Mane, knowing that we've not ever heard that kind of thing from him while he was at Liverpool. And heading over to Bayern Munich, I mean, Bayern are bigger. Let's give it to them. They're bigger. They're way bigger than Liverpool. And the shoe is really, really huge to fill up, talking about the vacuum left by their former player, Robert Lewandowski. And for Sadio Mane, he has not been able to live up to that expectation.
But is it really his fault?
Yeah.
He did have an injury.
He's been out injured and all of that. Yeah, but he started good at Bayern, no doubt about that. He started very, very good at Bayern. But then the fans want a lot more. And the pressure is beginning to tell on Sadio Mane. Now, heading into that game, playing against Manchester City, yes, we saw a bit of lapses from Leroy Sané and a couple of Bayern Munich players. And Sadio Mane was brought in during the second half of that game. You don't expect him to do so much. And like he said he didn't like the way Leroy Sané spoke to him. And who will get punished? It is the person who throws the first punch.
But did he clearly state what Leroy Sané said to him that made him punch him?
They've not commented on anything yet.
Right.
They've not commented.
It's really
a sad case, though, if you ask me.
Did you now see why Cristiano Ronaldo refused to come in much later when they brought him towards the end of a match that's caused problem?
Exactly.
Because how much can you really do in that time?
I also...
But he's Cristiano Ronaldo, he can perform magic.
Cristiano Ronaldo, by the way, has made, people say he has made them fire his coach. I understand. They just fired him yesterday.
But let's not point fingers at Cristiano Ronaldo.
Nobody's pointing fingers at Ronaldo because you're always complaining and you're always shouting, so people thought it was a coach. But another clear, one of the things I'd like to also highlight is Sadio Mane was not really, I mean, from my own perspective, wasn't really brought in to replace Lewandowski because he plays from the wings. Lewandowski is a 9, so you do have Choupo-Moting. So I think the pressure for me that must have caused the fight or confusion is the fact that Sané, on the other hand, likes to play from the left wing and also from the right. So Mane may have wanted to go, because if you look at that altercation, I think he was telling him, listen, why don't you pass the ball?
Switch,
and so on. There was a little confusion between, oh, that's my position, not yours. I think you should come this way or so on. But I blame Tuchel. I blame the coach.
I was about to say that shouldn't that have been something that the coach should have clarified before they went into the match?
I really don't know why Joe would blame Tuchel. Is it because he was your former manager? Let's not
when he was fired from Chelsea, however, he got a lot of support from Chelsea fans. So people felt like he was fired.
He still gets to today.
Yes, that he was fired prematurely and he wasn't given enough time. And it's something that Chelsea has constantly been blamed for, that they don't allow managers to come and settle in properly. And it's not fire. What kind of toxic relationship is that?
It's fire for fire ministries.
It's okay. Thanks for coming to Doka Joku.
It's like when we throw jabs at
you at 10:30 in the game.
I have what it takes to chest those punches.
If you like, show up for in the game. If you like, don't show up. That's your business.
I will show up.
Recap up next. Thank you for coming. Leave the screen, please. Recap. Let's bring to you some of the top stories that we've had for the first hour this morning.
We had the East Africa Roundup with Darren Bartlett, and we of course introduced you to our latest Gen Africa Roundup, who will be joining us from next week.
Most definitely, and it's something you shouldn't miss, no doubt. And Argentina World Cup winner Lionel Messi named the 2023 list.
Whilst we talked about that, we also talked about Chelsea and their relationship with Tuchel and how they're always firing their managers.
It's okay.
But that's not all. Coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Wiki versus Dino Malaya, Nigerian politicians in fierce verbal battle.
And we have the life of a Nigerian chef breaking culinary records, talking about Hilda Bassi. She'll be joining us shortly.
By the way.
Very.
Tunde Kelani announces
Saworoide Part 2.
Village Square Africa, now showing Monday to Thursday, 2 p.m. West African time and 4 p.m. East African time.
News Central TV, Africa's #1 storyteller, has come with the best of both worlds. With a combination of news app and live TV, we ensure that you keep track of the latest headlines, breaking news, and in-depth analysis from professional journalists from around the continent. Download the News Central TV app on Android and iOS and get started today. Don't forget to follow us on News Central's social media platforms. News Central, Africa First.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Dakpo Adigboye. Let's begin in the north of the continent, where Algeria's parliament has passed legislation that tightens media ownership regulations and prohibits journalists from shielding sources, significantly curtailing press freedom in the North African country. The rule prohibits domestic media outlets from obtaining financial or direct and indirect material aid from outside sources, threatening criminal prosecution and fines of up to $15,000. Dual nationals are also prohibited from owning all or part of a media outlet, and journalists working for foreign media organizations without accreditation face a fine of about $7,600. The law also recognizes professional secrecy as a right, but permits courts to compel journalists to reveal their sources. Still in the region, 3 defendants accused of repeatedly raping a Moroccan girl pleaded not guilty Thursday as the case went to appeal after their light sentences shocked the country. According to rights group, the victim was only 11 when she was repeatedly raped and became pregnant. The legal team of the girl, who is now 12, had appealed after a lower court sentenced one of the 3 alleged attackers to 2 years in prison and the others to 18 months each. All 3 have faced up to 30 years behind bars. One of the men was confronted with a DNA test proving that he is the father of the child born to the girl. Father of the girl spoke to journalists at the start of the hearing. In the west of the continent, Burkina Faso's military junta has declared a general mobilization to give the state all necessary means to combat a string of militant attacks since the start of this year. In a statement, the presidency noted that the goal is to create a legal framework for all the actions to be taken against the insurgents. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's transitional president, who staged the most recent coup on September 30th, has set a goal to recapture 40% of the country's territory, which is controlled by militants affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Authorities also issued an advisory that gives the president the right to requisition people, goods and services, and the right to restrain certain civil liberties. In the east of the continent, Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga says the opposition alliance is prepared to negotiate with government over electoral reforms and the higher cost of living, while also resuming protest. Speaking in a town-style meeting in Nairobi on Wednesday, Odinga disclosed that protest will take place concurrently with talks with the government. He stressed that the protest restart will be made as soon as the holy Muslim month of fasting was over. Residents of Ethiopia protest hit Amhara region say calm has returned to the region after several days of public demonstrations against government and plans to dismantle regional military forces. Earlier this week, authorities imposed restrictions, including a curfew and curbs on movement in 5 cities in Amhara following the protest over moves to integrate regional military forces into the federal army or regional police. But residents in Bashar Dar, the administrative center of the region, said the transportation had started in the city just as banks and stores are beginning to open. Another local that lives in Gondar, the largest city in the Amhara region, reported that things were calm as Ethiopians got ready for the Orthodox Easter vacation. In the meantime, Ethiopia's rights was called for investigations into the killing of civilians and humanitarian workers during recent protests in the Amhara region. The killings were reportedly carried out by security forces and unknown persons. The Ethiopian Humanitarian Rights Commission said that worsening insecurity could lead to an abuse of rights and urged security forces against using excessive force. Protests in Amhara began last week in opposition to moves by federal authorities to dissolve a regional paramilitary unit. And that's all on the news at this time. Back to you, Joe and Olive.
Thank you, Dapo. Thank you once again. Well,
thank you for having me.
Those stories are stories that we'll continue to look into, plus developing ones as well, and the news stories from the continent of Africa, because we're Africa first. Thanks for joining us. See you again later.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go straight to the front pages and find out what Africa is saying. Up next. Our very first paper takes us to West Africa, Nigeria to be precise. It is the Daily Sun. Daily Sun, Daily Sun, Daily Sun, Daily Sun. And the front page there on the Daily Sun has it that polls Tinubu, Atiku continue bitter war. It seems to be war everywhere, here or there. And that's what you have on the front page there. What it goes on to say, you're a serial loser. Unstable politician, President-elect says. You can't run away from your past, fires PDP presidential candidate. Much more like it's getting really, really hot. Poverty, insecurity situation in Nigeria worrisome according to World Bank. Just this morning, statistics showed that about 102 people were killed in a day. All right,
wow.
In the northern part of Nigeria. Very sad. I beg your pardon. In Benue State, I beg your pardon. And while looking at that statistics and going through that, I couldn't help but wonder, what is going on? Where's humanity? Anyway, Times Magazine names Tinubu among 100 most influential in the world in 2023. Page 6 has that story. Senate presidency, ex-lawmakers back zoning to south. 7 burnt, 18 injured in Lagos-Ibadan Expressway auto crash.
Oh my goodness. Every time we're talking about this.
On Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
And every time they're walking on that road. Every time.
Why?
Wow, this is such a sad
every time I hear of accidents on that road, I even get so scared of going to Ibadan via road. Because I'm always like, hey.
I don't want to find myself in that complicated situation.
Anyway, again, gunmen attack Zango, Kataf, kill 8, strike Rivers community, kill 3, kidnap 2. Floods killed 665, displaced 4.8 million persons in 2022, says Neymar. And finally, CBN to mop up funds in dormant accounts. If you have a dormant account and money has been there for more than 5 years and counted, I think 10 as well, they mentioned, well, you might want to pay attention to that account. Well, they say customers must provide account ownership evidence for reactivation. All right, so that's all I'm taking on the Daily Sun. Let's move away from Daily Sun now and still stay in Nigeria. Let's go to Punch.
All right, now let's share with you what's happening on the front page of the Punch newspaper. And we can see the big story this morning there says supplementary elections. APC PDP battle for 2 governorship and 94 legislative seats. That's what the big story this morning on the Punch says. Now we can see some sub stories there that says Atiku mobilizes support for PDP candidate. APC backs Binani to upstage Fintiri. IG allays fears of voter intimidation, deploys personnel in 2,660 polling units. And we can see Buhari performing lesser Hajj, Muslims urged to be self-reliant, and Ramadan Kareem to all our Muslim followers, our Muslim faithfuls who have been tuning into Breakfast Central. That's a clip there of them at the Hajj, lesser Hajj. Obi Kwankwaso shared Atiku's votes, Tinubu tells tribunal. Building collapse, Lagos State government stops construction projects on Banana Island on pages 4 and 5. House leadership reps elect form 283-member alliance on page 18. At the top of the paper, Tinubu don't make time magazine's 100 most influential persons on page 12. I wonder why that was written in pidgin English on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Tinubu don't make time. It feels like I'm reading a...
Where is it?
Yeah, see, the top left. Tinubu don't make time magazines. Okay. I have a conspiracy theory for whoever wrote that caption, not about the caption.
Was it Tinubu, then Dawn? Make time. There would have been a comma or something.
Yeah, it would have been Tinubu done.
It's an error. I want to believe it's an error.
Anyway, Tinubu shall don't make time magazines, 100 most influential persons. CBN to mop up dormant account balances, unclaimed funds. So if you have funds in accounts that you're not using, like Joe said in the earlier paper, it's going, Otilo. Fuel subsidy, oil theft, gulp, 29 trillion naira says government. Federal government is obviously planning to take away fuel subsidy, and we're counting down to June. But that's all that we can do this morning on the front pages of the newspapers, and that's all the paper that we can take. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I have to quickly take the building collapse. Lagos State stops construction projects on Banana Island. Yes, that's it. But that's all that we can take this morning. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we have our top stories. Very packed second hour. We promise you don't want to miss this.
You wake up to...
As reporters, we don't just gather news stories, we experience them daily. So join us on Report Desk Africa as we share these experiences and review the top African stories. Only on News Central.
Welcome back. Nigeria's President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been named one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. The 71-year-old former governor of Lagos State was listed among the 20 world leaders that made the 2023 edition of the magazine. Tinubu was listed alongside First Lady of Ukraine Olena Zelenska, United States President Joe Biden, and other world leaders. Now, away from that update, let's share with you what's happening in the political space in Nigeria.
That's right. Now, aside from the fact that Tinubu has been named amongst the top 100 in Times Magazine, many of the APC supporters have said it is indeed a good feat worthy of celebration. And that mention in Time Magazine was as a result of his continuous fight for democracy away from military rule. But the picture you find there on the screen takes us to our very next story, away from celebrating the 100 being mentioned and also having Tinubu in that list, But let's go straight to our next story now. Well, the next one is has to do with the continuous situation that's ongoing in the Nigeria political sphere. Earlier on, we had brought to you the story on the front pages of the paper that Tinubu, that's the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and not forgetting too, the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar are at loggerheads exchanging verbal wars. Well, it hasn't stopped there. As Nigeria's election saga continues to play out, People's Democratic Party's governorship aspirant in Kogi State, Dino Melaye, has continued to make some shocking revelations about a one-time ally, the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Now, one of his revelations is how the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, allegedly begged him to ensure PDP's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar picked him as a running mate.
Dino Melaye also revealed that losing the party's presidential primary to Atiku last year, Wike had refused to work with the party's candidates, saying the embattled chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, should step aside. Wike, in collaboration with other 4 governors, had insisted that they would not allow the candidates of the party and the PDP chairman to be Northerners.
Well, we have so much to talk about concerning this, and what we'll do is we do have our guest who's in. Inko is in the house. Inko, thank you for joining us. But before we continue with this conversation, we'd like to go for a quick break. When we come back, our focus will be on this particular story. Well, joining us now is Ipunabo Inko Taria. He is the former SA to River State Governor Nyesom Wike. He joins us live this morning as our conversation continues and will perhaps help us throw more light to this ongoing situation. Before you go on with your response, I'd like us to take a look at the interview that was carried out by AIT News Channel, and I'd like you to react to it. Let's take a look.
Any other interview, if he will not wash his hands out of Kogi State and leave Dino Melaye alone, my primary business is other people's businesses. If I open my can of worms and maggots on Wiki, but I'm waiting for him. His territory that he's trying to practice is my own primary constituency, and I'm waiting for him. Wike was calling me when Atiku Abubakar was to announce his running mates. I have records and I've printed it out and I'm waiting for him. He called me 19 times in 2 hours, begging us to convince Atiku Abubakar to make him the vice presidential candidate. So when I see him lying on TV, because of the south of this country, because of southern Nigeria, the name of north to south, you that were lobbying us and begging us, promising us heaven and earth to convince Atiku Abubakar to make you vice presidential candidate, to the extent that he was at the airport. I have a video. He spent hours in the airport waiting for me to call him to say, Atiku, I've picked you as a... He was at the airport here, waiting, calling me.
All right, so Inko Taria, what's your take on this ongoing challenges or wrangling in the PDP?
Well, first I'll start by saying Wike met his match in Dino Melaye. That's the truth. I mean, as got as finished as these issues can be, or the two parties can be, but he met his match in Dino Melaye. I mean, he shot the first salvo. He had no business delving into the Kogi State governorship candidates. A lot of people say, well, it's the primaries, and as a result of that, since he's a member of the PDP, he also has a right to decide. But I think it's the exclusive preserve of the Kogi State PDP and members of, Kogi State individuals. Wike has no business whatsoever delving into who becomes the governor or the flag bearer of Kogi State. That's not his state. But he has this attitude of wanting to control, not just the PDP, have a control of the nation via the parties. We saw what happened in Lagos State, where he went to Lagos State during the governorship, before the governorship election, and endorsed the Lagos State governor for a second term. You saw what happened in Akwa Ibom. You saw what happened in Cross River, even though his candidates all lost in those states and so on. He wants his hand everywhere. He wants to dominate.
Right.
That is what we refer to as the drum major instinct, feeling extremely important. And in the last presidential election, well, probably he played a role in ensuring that Rivers votes were allegedly given to the APC presidential candidate, who is now the president-elect. But I can tell you that in Rivers State, the man who actually won the election was Peter Obi. Well, it is subjected to the clinical prognosis of the legal lab, and we pray and hope that the Lord Justices of the Supreme Court will do justice to that matter, that they will not just pass judgment, but will ensure that justice prevails.
All right.
We just hope, because my candidate is actually Atiku Abubakar, but I want to be as honest as I can that Peter Obi won Rivers State. I mean, the facts are there, but let's wait for the Supreme Court judgment. I know it's going to start from the Court of Appeal, but I say Supreme Court judgment because that is the final arbiter in the presidential elections.
Okay.
So if you ask me, I'll say he fired the press out. Then on the issue of what a lot of people refer to as disclosure, it's no disclosure, it's no secret that the issue of equity, fairness, and justice was just a specious reason given by Governor Nyesom Wike simply because he lost out in the vice presidential bid. We all know, Nigerians are quite aware of that, and that was why it was not taken seriously at all by any serious-minded Nigerian.
All right, let's talk about the relationship between Wike and Dino Melaye. Now, in an interview granted recently, Dino Melaye stated categorically that Wike was a big sponsor of his 2019 elections. And what has changed between 2019 and 2023? And, how exactly do we think that is as a result of Wike having lost being a party to being the vice president? Or was there something to the story that we're not aware of?
If I have to summarize your question, because there's so much distortion.
I haven't heard any of those songs first. But secondly, I do understand the concerns that people have about artificial intelligence. But before I talk about the concerns, I don't think that an AI star, I mean, I don't understand what the law is. I'm not an intellectual property lawyer in that sense, or, you know, someone, basically, intellectual property law is going to be evolved. The concept of intellectual property will evolve with the invention of artificial intelligence. But I would think that you would need my consent to be able to do my song, you know, and then earn money from it. Although there are other angles to it, people talk about those who do covers and do parodies of the same song. But if you have to be like an artist singing my song, I would assume that you would have to, you know, pay some royalties if you're going to be earning off my intellectual abilities. So I guess we just have to wait and see how artificial intelligence unfolds. Next week on the show, we will be bringing an expert, an artificial intelligence expert, to come and break it down, what artificial intelligence means. John Obidi has been talking a lot about, teaching a lot about artificial intelligence. And then we can see what exactly people need to do to prep. Because people are concerned, are we going to lose our jobs because of AI? We're seeing AI artists. AI is helping people write scripts. And I saw recently an AI broadcaster. I said, is this playing? So it's important that we talk about what artificial intelligence brings and maybe the immense opportunities it offers.
I agree. Now I'm looking forward to the conversation next week because I really want to understand what happens in this dynamic.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
Well, let's see how it goes. Thank you so much, Sam Dandy, for joining us. And those were very interesting stories indeed. We'll be wrapping things up on Breakfast Central. It's been a very packed week. I would thank you for making time out to join us. But let's share with you what's happening later today on News Central. At 1 p.m. West African time, we take you beyond the continent. 4:30 p.m. West African time, it's Pop Casa. And at 7 p.m. West African time, we'll help you secure the continent. I would like you to join us. All right, we've come to the end of today's show. Sam, any plans for the weekend?
Oh my goodness, rest. I need to sleep.
All right. Well, I'll be spending time with family, but I'll be starting off today by spending time with, you know, in Nigeria. I don't know if it's like that in other parts of the continent. Weekends are usually for weddings. So lots of weddings are going to be happening, and I'm going to be hosting the wedding of my childhood friend, Kachi Ekwerike. So I want to use this opportunity to wish him the best in married life and to say I'm very excited to share in their love. And I can't wait to share in your love as well, Sam Dandy. On that note, we'll be out and we'll see you again next Monday. My name is Olive Emodi.
I am Sam Dandy.
All right, see ya.
At a time when the
Global cereals market has been disrupted by the Ukraine war. Tunisia's domestic grain production has also withered under a lack of rainfall that has killed off crops. Even before the roasting summer months, the soil is dry and dusty in the small Mediterranean country whose water resources are steadily depleting as climate change intensifies.
قاعدين نحرثوا خاطر العام ما فماش مطار جم الجفاف جفاف 100 جفاف ما نبتتش النعمه حتى اللي نبتت ما لقاش باش تقاوم وما لقاش باش تطلع قاعدين نحرثوا خاطر ما فماش مطر مارس يقولوا ذهب خالص لا ثم لا صبت لا في مارس ولا في افريل عام كامل ناقصين برشا مطر هذاك علاش قاعدين نحرثوا باش على الاقل نربحوا الموسم الجاي كان اعطانا ربي المطر. بالنسبه لي انا كفلاح بالنسبه للموسم اللي فات ناتج اكثر من 10,000 قنطار ما بين قمح صلب وبقوليات لكن السنه مش نحصلوا حتى زريعه تو نحن حايرين حتى في الزريعه حايرين وين مش يجيبوا زريعه تو بالنسبه للسنه حتى الزريعه حايرين من مش يجيبوها ما نعرفوش كيفاش معنا مش يكون الوضع ما ثم حتى شيء بالنسبه للسنه زيرو معناها انتاج ما ثم حتى انتاج لا قرط ولا حبوب ولا بقول ما ثماش حتى شيء.
With some Tunisian water reservoirs almost completely dry, authorities had imposed emergency measures, rationing household supplies and banning water use for washing cars as well as for irrigating fields. The shortages come at a critical time for Tunisia, a net importer of wheat that has been hard hit by price hikes since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, both huge cereal exporters.
نحن بلاد في حاجة سنوية لحوالي 30 مليون قنطار قمح لين قمح صلب وشعير. إذا اليوم مش نجمعوا 1.5 مليون وحاجيات الفلاحين 2 مليون بذور يعني إن شاء الله نلقاو حاجياتنا من بذور العام الجاي. هذا اللي مش يؤدي لأن الدولة التونسية مش تستورد كل حاجياتها من القمح اللين والقمح الصلب والشعير المدعم اللي تعتاه للفلاحة بأسعار رمزية الكل من الخارج. يعني اليوم نحن في وضعية صعبة جدا.
Avec le changement climatique, il faut absolument repenser l'agriculture. Ce n'est plus logique de fournir 80% des ressources en eau pour 8% des terres agricoles utiles et laisser l'agriculture pluviale sans eau parce qu'avec la sécheresse, il n'y aura plus d'eau pour faire l'agriculture pluviale.
A painful cost of living crisis is compounding woes as the government is in negotiations with the International Monetary Fund for a bailout package. Bettina Nweli, reporting for News Central.
As the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin's arrest for war crimes, South Africa faces a diplomatic dilemma following the issuing of the arrest warrant. As a member of the ICC, it would be expected to arrest if Putin steps foot in the country.
If we don't, at this moment in world affairs, cling to the law, if we don't look at ourselves and decide how we can do better, not just in Ukraine, but as nations, as member states of the United Nations, we will not only miss an opportunity, but we may not have further opportunities.
At the 17th Joint Intergovernmental Committee for Trade and Economic Relations in March, where the Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, hosted the Russian Minister of Natural Resources and the Environment in Pretoria, the minister couldn't answer the question, saying the cabinet is waiting on legal advice.
You would see, Minister, that there's a great deal of media interest in our meeting because there are some who don't wish us to have relations with an old historical friend. We have made it clear that Russia is a friend and we've had cooperative partnerships.
However, the arrest warrant seems to be giving South Africa a bigger headache as Putin is expected to visit the country for the BRICS summit in August.
It's a BRICS summit that involves heads of state. So naturally, all heads of states will be expected to attend the summit. But now we have a spanner in the works in the form of this ICC warrant. So what that dictates is that there be further engagements in terms of how the summit is going to be managed, and those engagements are underway. And once they've been concluded, the necessary announcements will be made.
We don't want ICC's hypocrisy to apply here in our country. President Putin is welcomed. We know our friends. We know the people who liberated us. We know the people who supported us. In Kuto-Konaval, the weapons that were used in Kuto-Konaval that led to the liberation of South Africa were coming from Russia.
Pretoria has close ties with Moscow and refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and also hosted a controversial joint military exercise with Russia and China that coincided with the one-year anniversary of the start of the war. The Russian leader is charged with ordering the unlawful removal of Ukrainian children and transporting them to Russia during the ongoing war. Ni Omani, reporting for News Central.
Our youth are the most important national asset that we have.
Did you hear the stories of Africans who fought for their independence, bringing a wave of 30 free countries in just 10 years? Did you hear of the heroes who fought battles that are just like yours? They courageously marched against bad governance, police brutality and oppression. You're not the first in these battlefields.
Amazon is in green. Camacho Quinn second from the left. The Olympic champion's been left a little bit at the start by Armstrong.
Those stories may be hard to find in the mix of foreign priority, perspective and agenda, but our stories will definitely find future generations. The fearless generation of tomorrow will know the battles that we are fighting and the giant strides we're making in technology, art, music, movies, business and more. They will know our wins and losses, our stories and the influences of our evolving and diverse cultures. They'll learn from our mistakes, appreciate our progress and build on successes. With our stories and their relentless ambition, we will be one step closer to the Africa of our dreams. Because whatever happens today across Africa, News Central will amplify those stories that define our times. News Central Television. We are Africa First.
Hello and welcome to News Central Now on News Central Television. I am Dakbo Adigboyi. We begin the news at this hour in West Africa, where Burkina Faso's military junta has declared a general mobilization to give the state all necessary means to combat a string of militant attacks since the start of this year. In a statement, the presidency noted that the goal is to create a legal framework for all the actions to be taken against the insurgents. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's transitional president, who staged the most recent coup on September 30th, has set a goal of recapturing 40% of the country's territory, which is controlled by militants affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State group. Authorities also issued an advisory that gives the president the right to requisition people, goods and services, and the right to restrain certain civil liberties.
Brigade. Le second décret porte ordre de mobilisation générale et de mise en garde. L'instauration de la mobilisation générale et de mise en garde vise à donner un cadre juridique et légal à l'ensemble des actions à mettre en œuvre au regard de la situation de péril que vit la nation dans le contexte actuel du terrorisme. L'adoption de ce décret permet l'instauration de la mobilisation générale et de la mise en garde dans notre pays en vue de se doter des moyens nécessaires pour défendre l'intégrité du territoire et sécuriser l'ensemble des populations et leurs biens face au terrorisme.
Staying in Nigeria, the country's House of Representatives ad hoc committee investigating crude oil sales has summoned Abubakar Malami, Attorney General of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, over the implementation of the whistleblower policy of the federal government. This follows the outcome of an investigation involving the alleged loss of $2.4 billion in revenue from the illegal 8 million barrels of crude oil in 2015. News Central's Adeshawa Odushoga has more.
In 2016, the Nigerian government introduced a whistleblowing policy, an anti-corruption program that allows Nigerians to report cases of corruption and financial theft to Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Finance.
Encourages anyone with information about a violation of government's financial regulations, mismanagement of public funds, to report it.
However, in July 2020, a whistleblower raised an alarm over 48 million barrels of Bonny Light crude that was illegally sold in China in 2015 under the authorization of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, a claim that was investigated by an ad hoc committee set up by the lawmakers in the lower chambers in 2022. The committee has now summoned the Attorney General of the Federation, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and the Minister of Finance over the implementation of the recovered funds.
The committee, after its investigation, will no doubt guide the House in making an informed decision in considering the whistleblowers' bill currently before the National Assembly.
Heads should rule, on the basis of this. People should be asked not just to resign. People should be taken to court, right? People should serve sentences. I think it's a sorry state, especially because, again, you have the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice actually involved in this. And I hope that, the House of Reps, leadership looking into this is, pretty unbiased. They can, they can afford to throw stones, right? Because they also don't have, skeletons in their own cupboards, right? They can afford to actually do the right thing.
In June 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari said around $386 million was recovered in 2021 through the whistleblowing policy. But 7 years down the line, the policy seems to be losing its relevance, with reports of death threats and job loss for whistleblowers in the past.
What is being requested from the whistleblower is not just to provide actionable information any longer, but to go all the way and help the government do its job by recovering the fund, even though, they do not have the wherewithal, the resources to actually do that. And it's a dangerous preoccupation. The fact that if I whistleblow today, it might actually get, off the hands of people I think can be trusted, government agencies that I think can be trusted, and then someone begins to even, threaten me. It's something that should have been probed properly.
As a follow-up on the investigation of the oil theft controversy,